You're listening to the Small Business Tech Podcast, brought to you by Frontpoint-IT, Utah's premier managed services provider. Visit us online at www.frontpoint-it.com.
I'm Dan Stanford.
And I'm Jeremy Wright.
And today we are going to be talking about practical small business security. It's been all over the internet lately in the news about all the big break-ins at the big places. You know, you got your Home Depot and your Targets and all that sort of stuff. And we wanted to talk about how we, talk about security with the small business in mind. So I want to keep this to kind of practical applications of security, because you can get into all these crazy ethereal, security, and they have their place, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to small business, we need things that are a little bit more concrete that we can actually follow through with. So first and foremost is passwords. Jeremy, have you ever seen any bad examples of small businesses and passwords?
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're referring to. We've had clients in the past where their password is the name of somebody that works there, and that is it. No special characters or anything, which is definitely not a good idea. Passwords typically the longer the better, and especially when you're coming to like an administrator password for a domain, you shouldn't worry about whether or not it's easy to remember. It should not be something that's easy to remember, something like that. It should be a very good password.
One of the best tips I've heard on passwords is to say, take a sentence and then use the first letter of each of the words in that sentence. So Mary had a little lamb, and then take each letter and turn that into your password.
Some of the best passwords, though, are a short phrase involving 4 random things like door, tripod, level, battery. Something like that, and then you can add numbers on the end and special characters, and that becomes incredibly difficult to guess because it's long and it's random things, so nobody can put together your password based off your kids' birthdays or your anniversary date or something like that, and it's completely random.
As far as passwords go, it is important that each employee have their own unique password, that they be complicated passwords, and everybody is aware that they really are the gates to the kingdom, especially passwords that have administrative type rights. Some of the other practical security things I'd like to talk about are firewalls. With particular firewalls, they do age out. The hackers are always coming up with new methods to attack networks. And viruses and script robots out there are always, like I said, coming up with new ways of doing it, and your firewall needs to keep up with that. So a firewall that's 10 years old is not a good deterrent for the bad guys. Do you need to get a new firewall every year? Absolutely not. Do you need to get a new firewall say every 5 years? That's probably a good idea. Also, a lot of firewalls also have subscriptions, and it is a very good idea to maintain that subscription. And then, of course, it all boils down to making sure that firewall is configured properly. And that's where you need an IT professional to help with that part of it, to make sure that all the security features are enabled and that you don't leave the front door to your house wide open, the front door to your network wide open through your firewall.
Dan, what is a firewall in 2 sentences or less?
Firewall in 2 sentences or less. Well, the term comes from the firewall that is in your car between the engine and where the occupants sit inside the car, and it stops fires. If the engine were to start on fire, that's more than 2 sentences. The same idea applies to your network. It is a barrier between your network and the rest of the internet.
Typically, your firewall will go after. You'll have your modem or whatever device you use to connect to the internet, and then the firewall will come after that. Now, the modem or router that you get from your ISP probably has a very rudimentary firewall in it, which probably would work fine for most home users. However, if you are a business, you cannot be using that as your main source of protection from the rest of the world. So the firewall is what keeps the bad guys out. At the same time, the firewall also has very good technical uses, for instance, port forwarding and being able to direct certain services to certain things inside the network. So not only is it a security feature, but it also has functional features as well.
Something to remember too, it's not just bad guys that will hack your network, it's robots, scripts that are out there. Robots isn't the best term, but scripts that are out there running on other people's computers. They're constantly probing networks to see if they can figure out a way to get in. So don't think that a hacker is going to specifically target you and go after you. That may happen, but it's unlikely. More likely, it's just a computer program out there that randomly tripped across your network and found out that there are weaknesses, and then it is off to the races. Some other practical security things are patches. Windows patches, even beyond Windows patches itself, you can get into, Java patches, Adobe patches, making sure that your software is up to date, because all of those programs that I just talked about, Windows, Java, and Adobe, have been known for issues with their software. And if you're up to date on your patches, that seals off those entry points for viruses or bad guys to get into your computer.
And when you're talking about patches, what he's referring to is patches are usually a small update issued to a program by the people who created the program. Microsoft is constantly on the lookout for any entry point or any weak point in the Windows operating system. Obviously, they cannot catch them all, but they try their best. Same goes for, like Dan was saying, Adobe, and for Java. They're always trying to find that. And when they do find a flaw, usually they're very quick to take action, and they will issue a patch, which is, like the name implies, a patch over that security hole to keep whatever weakness was there from being exploited.
Some other practical things you can do are antivirus and anti-malware. Jeremy, what in the world is the difference between a virus and malware?
So we have I have a funny chart that I think of every time I think of a virus, because people will say, I think I have a virus on my computer, and the chart is like a big pie chart, and it says problems that people think are caused by a virus, and it says like 99%. And then problems that are actually caused by a virus, and it says 1%. What viruses typically do, a virus typically takes control of your machine without you knowing, and the best viruses would be one that you don't know are there, and they use your machine for other purposes. So it can use it to distribute itself, like a virus that you get into your body uses your own cells to reproduce its DNA and go throughout your body and spread. A computer virus would do the same thing, where it would use your computer to help distribute its malicious code across the internet. And that's what a virus does. Viruses are typically very difficult to find without antivirus programs, and you would probably never know it was there. Malware, on the other hand, is more of the garden variety that you'll see most days. Malware typically is the pop-up ads, the advertisements that you see without you wanting to go there. It's the little weather bug program that pops up in the bottom, the coupon saver programs. That's usually what we're referring to as malware.
Malware stands for malicious software, and like Jeremy said, it's software that does not replicate, it does not move beyond your computer necessarily, but it sure wants to find out information about you. And that's kind of the goal of malware, is they're looking for your behavior, they're looking possibly even for your passwords, usernames, email addresses, and stuff like that, and they are sending it back to the people who wrote the malware so that they can exploit that information.
Very common forms of malware are trying to direct you to their website so they can gain money off of their advertisements being viewed through Google Ads and things like that. One of the main differences I'd like to note between antivirus and viruses and malware typically is user installed.
Correct.
So typically you will install malware on your machine, no matter how careful you are. If you look, when you're installing the newest free PDF converter or whatever you're looking for, there's always a checkbox or some hidden term and agreement inside that thing that you're clicking next on, because you're just clicking through them. And it says, we're also going to install these 10 other programs, by the way. And if you click next, you agree to this. And so that's how they get away with the legality of that, is that if you don't read those terms and agreements, you're in trouble.
And the other great thing is, it'll invite 10 of its friends along, possibly those 10 friends will invite their friends too. And before you know it, your computer's running at a snail's pace and you're getting all sorts of pop-ups. You can't change your home page in your web browser. All that sort of stuff is very typical of malware. And some of the really atrocious malware that is difficult to remove will even pretend like it is a legitimate program. One of the worst is it pretends like it's an actual antivirus program, and it will pop up, and or an anti-malware program, and it'll pop up and say, oh, you're infected, you know, go here, pay us this money and we'll make sure your computer's clean, when in reality that actually is the malware that is showing you that pop-up.
Or often you'll see the backup programs, like My PC Backup is a common one. It does back up your computer to somewhere who knows where, and they're probably using your data for who knows what, but it always comes with 35 other programs that you do not want, and it's just a nightmare.
Another practical security tip is backups. You may not necessarily directly think of, you know, making sure that your server is backed up and your data is safe as a security practice, but it really is, because there are those instances where, you know, say a virus, it will go in and it'll either corrupt your data or wipe out your data, etc. And your only recourse to fix this issue is through a backup and to restore your data backward. And honestly, that is sometimes the fastest and easiest way to get to a resolution. You know, to go in and actually remove the virus and, you know, to repair the damage, if you will, could be tens of hours of labor to pull off. Where if you have a good backup, we're talking about a few hours to restore your data and you're back off to the races, and off you go. So oftentimes, you know, just recovering from backup is far more practical than actually trying to chase it down and, you know, quote unquote, fix it.
And when you're doing a backup, you typically want a local backup inside your office, and then you want an off-site backup replicated somewhere else, because you don't want to, heaven forbid, if your office were to burn down, you don't want your backup to be burned down with it. So you want that data somewhere else. The more places, the more secure places your data is, the better, really.
I had a client burn down. They had a whole bunch of paint in their back warehouse, and the entire place burned to the ground. I had another client of mine get hit by lightning and fried their server. Got right through the surge protector and everything and just blew it sky high. It was, you know, you could smell it and everything. It wouldn't turn on, and that was that. Everything was gone. So yes, it really does happen. You know, you do need to have multiple copies of that backup, you know, that are not there. Jeremy, any other practical security tips you can think of you'd like to impart?
I think we have some more in the sections we have later, so I think that's it for on that one.
Okay. One thing I wanted to bring up, we've seen this twice in the last about a year, is CryptoLocker virus or malware. That thing is a terrible, terrible thing. It again, it's generally user installed. It masquerades as something that you may find useful, and or it may get into your computer via, you know, that it's not patched or something to that effect. And what it does is it encrypts all of your files on both your computer and the server. Oh, we've seen it 3 times now, haven't we? Yeah. And then all the files are encrypted, and then it pops up with basically a ransom note that says, if you want your data back, then you need to, you know, give us this amount of money, and then we'll give you the key to decrypt your data. Again, the only resolution to that is, you know, just restore from backup. The encryption is not really breakable, and it is not within the realm of reason to do that.
Last week we talked about encrypting your data to keep other people out of it. What this program does, encrypts your data to keep you out of it. Yeah.
How to stop CryptoLocker, it's something that we discussed at length to make sure that our clients were going to be safe from it. And really it boils down to the practical tips I already covered earlier. Antivirus, anti-malware, making sure your computer is patched properly. And then of course, you know, heaven forbid, having that backup as the final fail-safe to stop the CryptoLocker. And we've had great success with that. The clients that have had issues with it were either not a client before weren't a client of ours when it occurred, and then they realized the error of their ways and then came to us and hired us. Or these were machines that were not patched, that were not properly configured for our services, and didn't have antivirus and anti-malware on it. Next, credit card security. This one comes up a lot. Not personally, but here at Frontpoint, we have had a few instances where the company credit card has been compromised and used. Wanted to talk about some tactics to help keep that secure. First and foremost, never, ever, ever send, credit card information or really anything that's truly personal or sensitive information through email. I have seen that. It is a very bad idea. Email by its nature is insecure. When it was created, decades ago, security was not a consideration when it was made. It was intended to be used, between universities and between students and kind of an incidental means of communication. But obviously, email today has become the lifeblood of businesses and even personal communication. So never, please do not send your credit card through email, your numbers, etc. When you do purchase something online, always make sure that you are purchasing from where you believe you are. So for example, make sure you really are on Amazon.com or say Dell.com or Barnes & Noble. Make sure you really are on that website. And one of the easiest ways is up in the address bar, there will be some type of a lock. And that tells you that your connection is encrypted, and it also verifies who you're actually talking to. So if you're ever in doubt, try clicking on that lock and just read a little bit of information about that encryption, and it will tell you very quickly who it is that you really are communicating with. Last but not least, regarding credit cards, is of course be careful over the phone and the like. If a company is calling you and trying to masquerade as say Comcast or IRS, I've received phone calls from the IRS before saying there's these issues and stuff like that. It's garbage. That's not the way that they communicate necessarily. And if you're ever in doubt, just tell the person on the phone, you know what, let me call your company back. Yep. So I've received calls from Comcast before, and I said, you know what, I'm not sure I'm really talking to Comcast right now. So I hang up with them, I go look up Comcast's proper phone number, and I call them back and say, hey, this was going on, is this true? And yes or no, and then you can take it from there.
Also, text messages are not secure either. Do not send credit card numbers over text messages.
Oh, good point.
Email the same, like Dan was saying. Also, don't click links out of emails to purchase something. If you get an email that says, like go to Amazon.com to buy this particular thing, don't click on that link, because that is a common tactic to send a link making it look like it came from Amazon or from any other number of websites, and you click on that link and it seems legitimate, but it's not. If you're in doubt, just go straight to that website by typing it in by yourself, going to that website and then going there.
Yeah, just always keep the security in mind, and just, always think to yourself, is this for real? And if you're in doubt, then go look it up yourself and go to that website yourself. Social engineering is another one. I touched on that briefly, where you will get phone calls from, other companies that, claim to be something legitimate. Like I said, Comcast is a big target, your wireless cell phone provider, IRS, the state government, income tax or federal government, all those sorts of things. If in doubt, if you're not sure about it, hang up with them, and they may get super pushy on you too, by the way, because they don't want you to do that. Now just hang up with them and say, thank you, and then call, then go look up the number yourself and then call them back.
And it's not just everyday people that get targeted as well. Some of the biggest data breaches and some of the biggest problems with security are usually social engineering attacks, or how they actually get carried out. We're talking about CryptoLocker. Police station police department got hit with CryptoLocker, as well as a school district. Both got hit with CryptoLocker.
Wow.
And it was through social engineering that they did it. And then some of the credit card hacks and problems and breaches with information from the IRS, with information from some of these bigger companies, was through social engineering.
We recently got an email. One of our clients got an email, and they had social engineered and somehow figured out who it was that approves purchases and expenditures. And then they faked an email from the CEO to the accounting department. They faked it as if it had come from the CEO requesting that a particular invoice be paid off. And it was fraudulent. It was not for real. The client brought it to me. We did some digging on it, found out some more information about it, and then they are currently in the process of talking to the FBI about it.
Right. There's a lot of safeguards in place too when you receive emails like that. The spam protection in your email client that doesn't let you open attachments and things like that. Those are all there to protect you. I know it seems really annoying when you are trying to open a legitimate attachment and it won't let you open it for whatever reason, or when the email gets blocked because it is a spam email, or it thought it was a spam email but it's not. It's really frustrating when those things work against you, but when they do work for you, they work really well. And so in my mind, it's a good trade-off to have these 1 or 2 minutes of inconvenience that you have to deal with occasionally because there's some problem with it where it was a false positive, as opposed to letting everything come through the floodgates and having real problems.
Agreed. When you do get those pop-ups, it is worth pausing for a moment and reading it and then going from there. I wanted to touch on briefly, Jeremy, what can the normal home user do? Because, everybody that's listening to this has a computer at home, and what advice we can give them to help keep them secure.
Well, the first thing you should do is make sure you have a firewall at home. I know that Comcast, their modems that they give you to rent out from them or that you purchase from them, has a built-in firewall. And you can log into it and they have instructions on their website how to set it up with the most security. And then if you're an advanced user, you can make your own changes or whatever. But I would go with the default settings they have there, which is high security, and they block most of the bad stuff, and they should be good with that. If you're a home user and you're worried about security, make sure that you're purchasing a reputable antivirus. Don't go with the free ones. Purchase the 1-year subscription to Kaspersky, I wouldn't recommend Norton, but if you are obsessed with it and want to use that, then by all means, go ahead.
Better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, and it's better than a fake one that doesn't do well. There's also like the ESET antivirus and a few others. There's tons out there. Do a search. Correct. And go to a reputable website for the search as well, like Tom's Hardware, or I think PC Mag does antivirus reviews as well.
Yes, yeah.
Make sure you're on there and not bestantivirusreviews.com or something weird like that. Don't go to that website to look for it. That's not where you want to go to. That's just another tip as well. Make sure that when you're looking for things that you're paying attention where you're going to. When you're searching for something on Google.
Yes, that's where I was going to go next, yes.
When you search for something on Google, the first two things that you see are typically advertisements. So those are companies that have paid to have their website listed at the top of Google. And they sometimes will be the place you're looking for, but oftentimes it's somebody else who's paid to have their website be at the top when somebody searches for a certain keyword.
For example, if you were to go into Google, and I'm making this up, and type in, say, PDF, because you want to look at a PDF, the top search results the paid ones may be for these free PDF viewers that are not made by Adobe Acrobat or by Adobe. And if you go down, to the organic search, then you would see Adobe listed there, and then you can select that and get truly what it is you're looking for. That would be my biggest bit of advice, just like Jeremy said there, for home users, is to please slow down and make sure what you are searching for and what you are installing on your computer is really what you're after. And just take a moment and make sure, Adobe free PDF viewer Lite or something like that, it would not be the proper product, whereas Adobe would be the proper one. And I'm just picking on them. There are plenty of others.
One of the things that I do myself, anytime I'm entering in a password to a website, I verify the URL of where I'm going to. So I look into the address bar and make sure that it says google.com or twitter.com or any whatever slash, it'll be a slash a bunch of garbage, of course. But make sure that wherever you're entering your password into is where you're actually supposed to be. That's one of, because a lot of places will actually buy websites that are like common typos.
Yes.
Like facebook.com. If you type it in wrong, somebody's probably paid for Facebook without an e.com, you know, or random websites like that, and they're trying to get your Facebook password. So if you ever have to enter in a password, take 1 second, like Dan said, slow down, take a second, look at the address bar, see where you're actually at, and make sure you're in the right place.
Also, and this will sound a little strange, don't make up websites. So, for example, you're interested in purchasing a new car. Don't go up in the address bar and type in www.ford.com. Is that a legitimate website? Yes. Is that the proper way to find it? No. Please go to, say, Google or MSN or Yahoo, and then do a search on Ford. And it will bring up the proper website and then go from there. Nissan, for example. Nissan.com is not the car manufacturer website. It's, I believe, Nissan USA, if I recall right. But regardless, just search for it. Don't take your best shot at it. Another one, you know, some people have preyed on, you know, like Jeremy said, other websites. I don't want to give a specific example, but there are other websites out there that will lead you to places that you really do not want to be and you had absolutely no intention of going to. So in particular, you know, yourself and with your children, teach them to search for the website that they're after. Don't just go up in the address bar and type it in your best guess, because chances are somebody out there has already thought of that and has registered that website, and you do not necessarily know where you're going to end up.
Mm-hmm. Also, .coms and .orgs and .nets can also get skewed up and cause problems as well. So like Dan said, search for the website, verify it's where you want to go to.
One last plug for your home users. I would encourage you to look into opendns.org. It is a nice little website. It has all sorts of parental controls, but of course it also will keep you from going to the websites that you don't want to go to that are full of viruses and malware and stuff like that also. It just simply won't allow you to go to those websites. It is very inexpensive. It's somewhere on the magnitude of $10 or $15 a year for their service, and I think they even have a free version of it too. So opendns.org, I highly recommend it.
Also, the most routers, like wireless routers or devices that you purchase from a retail outlet, will have parental controls and features built into them. You may have to look up how to use them through the manual that comes with it, but a lot of them, they realize that it's home users that are using these devices, and they're very user-friendly, very easy to set up. So check into that if you have, not on your cheapest devices, but the mid-range devices typically will have parental controls built in, and you can block certain websites that you know are bad. You know, some of the more adult nature websites or websites with TV shows you don't want your children watching or things like that. So that's something to look into as well.
All right. I think that about does it. Of course, here at Frontpoint, we're more than happy to help your small business with all these security tips we've come up with. Our management platform actually includes every last bit of those. Every last one of them is all automated and taken care of for you. So it's pretty handy that way. We like to keep our clients running. We offer unlimited technical support, so our goal is to make sure that you keep running, and that is our focus. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we will catch you later.
Have a great day.